Welcome.
Hi.
Very happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Floor is all yours. Have fun.
All right.
Let me get this off here.
Hopefully my internet doesn't act up.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, am I here? Am I live?
You're good. You're good to go. We're on. Let's do it.
Oh, damn. I'm waiting and stuff.
I'm a time Nazi. These summits that I've been to before, they go overtime and people and speak too long. I'm like, nope, we're going to do it on time. Everybody's going to get there exactly.
Okay, well,
so let's do it.
You then interrupt me because I have an ambitious presentation.
I'm excited
on water.
Yeah.
Well, I did a poll in my Telegram group and in my Patreon, and I asked, what would you like me to present in this summit? Would you like me to talk about structured water, the fourth phase of water, or would you like me to talk about health and cosmology? And water won the bet, even though I kind of was leaning toward the other one. So I'll have to do that in a future presentation. But good to be here, and thank you for having me. I have a very ambitious presentation today of many slides, which I will show you. So you'll have to put your thinking caps on. I'll probably go faster than I would like to. But then you can also catch it in the replay and see, learn again. The second pass seems to be easier than the first, I find. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through the slides, and you're going to learn a lot about the importance of water and how to structure your water, also how to use it for your health. Some of the devices that are out there that I like personally, and your mind's going to be blown because my mind was blown just doing the research. And I thought I knew, a lot about this topic. And every time I thought I knew something and went into another layer, it just took me more into depth of it. And, you're just gonna be mind blown. So be excited because I sure am. Okay. I'm going to share my screen now for you. And then I'm going to start this presentation and we'll get going. I don't know if we'll have any time for Q&A, but that's okay. We can do it later in Telegram chats or otherwise if you have questions. Okay, so we're going to talk about the fourth phase of water or structured water, or what this easy water is all about. So what is easy water or exclusion zone water, or the fourth phase of water? This is basically a summary of what I'm going through. What does it mean when we say structured or organized water? What is the relationship between structured water and electrical charge? How water is, that's a typo, water structured. How is water, where am I going here? How do I get back to the previous slide? Okay, 1 second. I'm kind of behind on my times here. Okay, I'm going to exit 1 second and start this over. Pardon me, technical stupidity. Let's start again. Hi. The back arrow took me forward. Don't ask me why. All right, so what's the relationship between structured water and electrical charge? How is water structured in our bodies to act as a battery? How does water store memory? And what are ways we can structure our own water, and what does it mean for our health? And this is really just a kind overview because we go into far more depth than this. You probably remember in your brainwashing schools that they taught you there are three phases of water. Water is H2O, end of story, drink 8 glasses a day, the end. But that's not the case. We actually have a fourth phase of water that was identified by a few scientists, one namely Gerald Pollack, and we will talk a little bit from his book, The Fourth Phase of Water. Easy water is an in-between state of, so we have water vapor, we have water as a liquid, we have water as ice, but in between water and ice, we have structured crystalline water, which is a fluid crystal. And so there's actually 4 phases. And I know that there would be other arguments that there's more phases than even this. But we have this to work with right now. So Dr. Gerald Pollack, he said, from childhood, we've learned that water has 3 phases, solid, liquid, and vapor. And here we've identified a 4th phase, the exclusion zone. It's neither liquid nor is it solid. And the EZ is perhaps best described as a liquid crystal with physical properties analogous to those like raw egg white, like a gel. Easy water forms when bulk water, which is called H2O, is nearly hydrophilic or is near hydrophilic material. So when it's nearby a physical hydrophilic cell, for example, it will form itself into these zones. Easy water is electronegatively charged, while bulk water is positively charged. Easy is called so because it excludes everything as it is being built. I see it as an ultimate form of purified water. This is a quote from his book, The 4th Phase of Water. Hard water is full of minerals, which easy water excludes. So here's just a simple picture of your exclusion zone above. That's, your exclusion zone, your bulk water. You can see a separation between the easy water and then the hydrophilic water-loving material. And this has been experimented and evidenced, not just with cartoons, because we know all about cartoons and tricks. Structure equals function. So when something has a specific structure, it displays its function. So this is another quote from his book. Order constitutes configurational potential energy, deliverable as the order gives way to disorder. So basically you could think of ill health as disorganized cells. Cancer being a classic example of a disorganized state. When you take a sample from a cancer tumor, then you can see that the cells are all different sizes and different shapes. Their function has been lost because the structure has fallen apart, and the body walls off these broken cells or damaged cells to prevent them from contaminating the rest of your body. Charge separation entails electrons carrying the EZ's usual negative charge, while hydronium ions bear the corresponding positive charge. Those separated charges resemble a battery, a local repository of potential energy. So here's your H2O moiety. Now you have an extra proton, which is the hydrogen moiety, and the hydronium ion is the 3 hydrogens, so it's H3O. And you have a positive charge left over because oxygen carries a charge of -2, whereas each hydrogen is a 1 proton carrier. Don't mind the model. It probably looks nothing like this. These are just simplifications. Principle 2, water stores energy. This is part of, his book where he really simplifies this knowledge, which I really recommend this. If you're teaching your children about water and understanding it, it's really easy to read, even though it's kind of science heavy. So I know there's a lot of science heavy texts. We'll talk a little bit about Gilbert Ling. Just wait for my internet to come back. Okay. Dr. Gilbert Ling, we're going to talk about him, and if you have his books or read his books, they're very difficult to sort through the lingo, but not Pollack. He makes it easy for you to learn. So this is basically showing that water is storing energy. It also stores memory, and it stores it like a battery. And you can actually put a charge onto water and separate these zones of positivity and negativity, where you're creating basically a boundary between the two. And if you understand anything about batteries, you have a negative and a positive and a barrier, and then what the negative and positive want to attract each other, and that creates an energy output, and that's your battery source, your energy source. So water as a battery experiment. So they did these experiments in the lab. They used a rectangular chamber, like I showed you. They placed the electrodes at both ends and applied a few bolts, and they had dye color built into 2 semi-rectangular blocks. Then they disconnected the power supply and found they could draw current. So it was holding the charge. We could draw it from the same electrode pairs used for charging, or from a fresh electrode pair positioned at any of a series of points straddling the chamber's center line. we could recover 70% of the input charge. That's a pretty good deal. So here's your initial state. This is their adding in the energy. They have a low pH, high pH, which is potential hydrogen. So the high pH has obviously more hydrogen ions. So that's your positive charge, and your negative low pH. And then over time, they went and said, okay, let's see how much charge we get back. And they could charge a light bulb with it, for example. I want this thing to go away. Okay, so it's just describing the colors at the bottom there. I can't read. So salt water as fuel. So in another study, which came by accident in an attempt to find a cure for cancer, a man named John Canzias, he did a study that found when salt water was exposed to microwave or radio frequency radiation, it would actually catch fire. And what he was doing is he was releasing, fractionating, or doing a type of electrolysis, releasing oxygen and hydrogen that could be burned as fuel. And there's the name of the study. John Canzias, he had cancer, and he was actually looking for a cure, but unfortunately he did chemo. And another who figured this out was Stanley Meyer, and I actually did an interview with his friend and colleague Scott Patty, which you can find on yummy.doctor if you're interested. And he was able to create a water battery car. So the car was running on a battery that was pretty much what I just described, fractionating and creating these free hydrogen and oxygen, which you could burn as a fuel inside the combustion chamber. Of course, you know how it goes with inventions that are brilliant. The inventors are usually tortured. Their materials are stolen. They are, slandered in the media. They're called names like quacks and crazy people, and the same tactics they use all the time for all of us who are actually doing really decent research, exploring the paradigm shift that we're all going through, and uncovering the lies of this whole realm, which they've lied to us for so many years that, of course, it looks to normies or people who are not awake as crazy, because they are locked into a lot of their mind control. So another main source, of course, would be the sunlight recharging a battery. Very simple concept, understanding of the UV light being put into water. I often will put my water out in the sun-charged water. And we're going to talk about people who drink sun-charged water and what happens to their bodies and their lifestyles, who get a lot of this beautiful sunlight, which we need for life and water charging and health. So photogenic ordering, I'm just going to see if I can collapse this. 1 second. Floating. Hide. There we go. Whoops. Don't do it again. Oh no. I can't go back. Please tell me if someone in the chat can tell me how to go back. Oh, did I do it? It's just slow. Okay. I think I'm doing it. All right. So photogenic ordering. Photons recharge the easy water by building order and separating charge. And they split these water molecules. They order the easy water, and they thereby set up one charge polarity in the ordered zone and the opposite polarity in the bulk water zone beyond. Now, plants will absorb radiant energy from the environment and use it for doing work. Plants are mostly comprised of water, so it's not really a surprise that, a glass of water sitting beside your potted plant may actually transduce incident photo. I'm just waiting for my internet connection, which told me it was unstable. We're back, so I'll reread it. Sitting beside your potted plant may transduce incident photonic energy much like the plant does. So there's actually communication between water molecules and transference of energy, which we're going to get into. This is just a photo of actual photo of easy water in action. So when you have a bigger exclusion zone, this is what happens when it's exposed to light. So if you can see, we have our bulk water to the right, and then on our left, we have the easy water, and then we have the hydrophilic aspect here, the plate. And then when sunlight or any type of energy, UV light of any source is put to the sample, the easy or exclusion zone expands. And this is ordered, structured, crystalline water, which will carry current and increase the battery, the life of the battery, and output of energy. And when you're in ill health, this is what your body will look like above. And when you're in pristine health, your easy water zones will be larger. Now, this is the shape that it's in Gerald Pollack's book. This is legit a picture from his book. Hexagonal water, which is the liquid crystal. So you might see people say hexagonal, structured water, easy water, ordered water. There's all kinds of terms that are describing this. And you'll see that it's hexagonally attached through the hydrogen moieties. And the ice will structure in exactly the same way. You'll see this hexagonal pattern in ice formation, and then you'll see it more jelly-like or gel-like when it's in the fourth.
We missed about the last 10 seconds there. Let's see if she can.
And he's sorry.
It's all right. We didn't hear anything
here,
for the last
the course.
20 seconds. Or so.
Did you get my?
No, probably last 20 seconds.
Okay, so the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, you were roboting the last 20 seconds.
So did you hear any of Gilbert Ling's stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, I was roboting. That's awesome. After the jelly part. Okay, so I'll start Gilbert Ling here. I'm going to look at the chat a little bit more. Okay, so Gilbert Ling, it needs a mention because he inspired Gerald Pollack and many other biologists to look differently at the body and what we think we know about it. Again, in our brainwashing schools, they tell us that the cell is the way that it is, and that we need to produce ATP, and that's our energy source. And that's why you have to eat food. And the whole point is to break down that food into energy that creates ATP and that runs your systems. And that's from the mitochondrial function. But actually, we're finding that's not really true. And that's not the model of the cell. And Gilbert Ling was very large voice in molecular biology, trying to explain that we don't have some of the structures they're saying that we have. For example, the endoplasmic reticulum is an artifact of removal of the cells and spinning of the cells and not actually present in our bodies. So he talked about water ordering in cell function, and he helped this framework sort of come to life. He wrote 5 books on the subject, the latest being his 2001 monograph, Life at the Cell and Below Cell Level. Very difficult to read. I have a lot of his books, like I said, and it's tough to get through, but it's brilliant. This book argues that the cell's charged surface order nearby water molecules, which in turn excludes most solutes. According to Ling, this ordering is the very reason why most solutes occur in low concentrations inside the cell, and the cell's order water excludes them. So, for example, he was one of the ones talking about the sodium-potassium pump. This is like a big thing in science. This is how cells are apparently working. They have gated channels. They open and close based on these the sodium and potassium wanting to come in and out of the cell, similar to a battery. However, it actually is a whole different story when it comes to fact, and it's the structured water that is allowing and manufacturing or mobilizing the ions of these minerals and is in control of the minerals, and no gated channel is required for that. Someone asked about my YouTube channel, and I just have to say that my major YouTube channel was deleted for the 3rd time, and I didn't start a new one. I have one kind of residual YouTube channel that you can find, YumNaturals Emporium, I believe it's called. So are you ready for me to blow your mind? Because this blew my mind. Let's talk about photosynthesis. So if you can believe it, there's evidence showing that there's photosynthesis-like mechanisms in eukaryotic mitochondria, and eukaryotic are animal cells. So what it's saying is animal cells can photosynthesize, which again, in your brainwashing biology classes, they say that only plants photosynthesize and we cannot. And this is why we need ATP. So there are a few studies that show this in insects. For example, light-induced electron transfer and ATP synthesis in a keratin synthesizing insect. And what they talk about is that these molecules, these particular pigment molecules, actually are responsible for the electric transfer. They're basically taking in the UV light, and they are cracking it and offering the hydrogen and oxygen to the body. Then the blood takes the oxygen and does what we know it does. And the waters use both to continue to structure and build the water inside the system, which is very controversial in the scientific community. And if you go researching this, you'll find all kinds of naysayers and nitpickers and brainwashed people who don't even want to actually look deep into the topic. They just want to chastise the people who are doing the work or criticize them, rather than go, wow, that's really fascinating. I'm a scientist, and I think, therefore I'm curious to know more. They don't act like that. So another study was called light harvesting chlorophyll pigments enable mammalian mitochondria to capture photonic energy and produce ATP. So they were basically describing these pigments, these chlorophyll pigments in mammalian mitochondria that were able to take energy from light. So it's also interesting to note that epigenetic changes were seen as the insects adapted to using light as a fuel for photosynthesis using pigment. And what this means, if you understand epigenetics, if you looked at epigenetics, the gene doesn't control the cell. This is like old news as far as, the leading edge of science. People who keep saying that the DNA caused this and caused that, they don't know what they're talking about, because it's the cell itself, it's the membrane potential of the cell that decides what gene sequence is used, turned on, or switched off. And so the brain of the cell is the membrane, not the DNA. And so epigenetic changes are seen in adaptive functions when, say, you are in starvation. Like, say you can't eat. If you were to get access to sun and sun-charged water, then your adaptive mechanisms pick up. Your melanin in your skin will pick up, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that's going to allow for more photosynthesis coming into your body so you can literally live on sunlight. Just waiting for it to forward. Okay, so here we have, it would go. That would be great. Okay, here we go. Chlorophyll and hemoglobin. There's a lot to unpack here. We're only skimming the surface. But you may have heard that chlorophyll and hemoglobin, which is a component of our blood, have many parallels. So they are close to identical molecules. The central metal is different. So in chlorophyll, it's magnesium, and in us and mammals, it's iron. And they possess both of these molecules possess 4 chiral rings, and it's a 5-member ring with 4 carbon atoms, 1 nitrogen atom with 2 double bonds in each ring. Just except there is in one of the chiral rings of the chlorophyll, it has only 1 double bond. So there are 2 main differences, but their structure and function are very close. Of course, they're sort of done in reverse, where the plant is, putting off oxygen, where we're putting off carbon dioxide. In our metabolisms are kind of inverse. We serve one another in that way. So both substances play a key role in the handling of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Primarily, animals consume oxygen, release carbon dioxide, whereas, as I said, that they release oxygen and consume carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is so bad, right? Yeah, okay. Plants eat it. It's their life. Carbon is not your enemy. Still, the same substances are handled by both organism types. So when I found out that humans can photosynthesize, I was quite blown away. That's actually really huge to know this. And again, the scientific community will just slather their vitriol all over this idea. It's embarrassing. But there is a center that works. I'm just going to move this down here. A center for the study of human photosynthesis. It was found to result in the visible and invisible light energy into chemical-free energy through dissociation and reformed from the water molecule, which forms a chemical cycle that first part is almost identical to the first reaction that occurs in the leaves of plants, where the chlorophyll, in the presence of the ends of the visible light spectrum, so purple and red, so, far infrared or infrared, and ultraviolet, so that your spectrum dissociates the molecule water, generating hydrogen and oxygen diatomic, i.e. liquid water transforms the gaseous or the gas part of the components. And you can go to humanphotosynthesis.com to learn more about that. And it sounds like they're pretty attacked, which is unfortunate. Melanin, they claim that melanin is the collector of the light. So as much as the heme is the part of oxygenation, part of our respiratory metabolism, the melanin actually is the collector. And I was thinking about this for a while, and so when you go out and you're in a sunny day and you're out on the beach, say, and you're being exposed to light, well, what's going to happen? You're going to tan. And what's tanning? Your body is producing more melanocytes. Why is it doing that? Because you're feeding it. You're saying, hey, we're going to eat the sun right now for energy. And we need more melanin so that we can do this photosynthesis process of two H2 molecules to splitting it to 2H2 and oxygen. And so we want to output our melanin into a higher amount so we can gather more of this food. And then when your skin starts to burn, that's the feedback of saturation. Your body has taken as much light as it's able to actually work with. And the feedback is now saying, stop, we're going to give you pain because we can't handle anything more with the skin. And then the burning happens, right? Which is, again, quite fascinating and not discussed in the halls of science. Or it's called pseudoscience or other terrible names. So this is our photosynthesis, our flexible and efficient body. Now, this melanin pigment, it's interesting to note. I don't know if you've heard of sun gazing, but sun gazing is actually gazing softly at the light when it is setting or when it's rising, and you have to check the UV before you do this properly so you don't burn your retina. But the retina actually contains melanin as well, and it can split to H2 and O2, H2 being the main carrier of energy to the source, to the water, to the structured water. And this energy comes from water, biomass comes from glucose. So when we're not getting sunlight or we're low energy, we start to use food as fuel, which is quite actually rudimentary and carries a lot of impact on our health because we have to digest, process, and remove all the excess waste that we are not able to use to create ATP. So that's why, our guts are always, in action, and we have to have waste out of our bodies. Now, glucose can't really be the source of energy. In that case, diabetic patients must be able to fly. I thought that was a funny quote because it's true. When you have too much glucose, you would think that the glucose would keep producing more and more and more ATP and your energy would be through the roof. But obviously that's not the case. And then another quote from a Spanish study said that human beings use the capacity to split the water molecule around 26 years of old. And every decade we lose 10%. Each decade. And by the time we're in our 50s, we're pretty much in free fall. So we're not able to do this splitting of the molecule. So we have to actually heal ourselves to get to that place. And I like this quote too, because a lot of people say, a lot of people really get hung up in the language. And see, I think about concepts and I'm very visual, and I don't get tripped up in semantics. And I find that our truther community does, and I have to tiptoe a lot around words. But we don't have the language for a lot of the new science. So we're actually just getting there with it. But this explanation of energy is sort of almost a joke, but, we'll say it's biophotonic. Like we'll say that the sun is giving biophotons. And then someone will say, well, now Yum proved that biophotons exist. That doesn't exist. The light can be both a particle and a wave, then blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. But here's the thing. There's energy coming in, and we know there is. And you can describe it differently if you want. Is it the word that's bothering you? I mean, I don't like the word quantum, but you'll hear a lot of talk in this community about quantum energy and quantum this, and this is like a molecule or a wave of light is a quantum atom or quantum energy. And then people get hung up on that too. So this quote says, it's not known what energy is. Is it a line? Is it a circle? Is it a wave? Is it a comma? Who knows? Energy is everything that is able to produce some change, whichever it could be. And I like that because that's my answer when anybody gets all semantically tangled with a lot of these terms. We're trying to actually explain concepts. And if you can understand the concept, you don't need to be hung up on the word. So by raising the levels of this unsuspected photosynthetic process in the human body by pharmacological means, the body responds as a whole and begins to function as correctly as he has done millions of times, millions of years. Again, this is just someone's idea of how long we've been here. I don't know. But this photosynthetic process is a response. And when you do get fed light, it will begin to function correctly and optimally how it was meant to. So melanin is to the animal kingdom like chlorophyll is to the vegetable kingdom. And I think there's more going on here, but what they're saying is that melanin is the gatherer and chlorophyll is the gatherer for plants. And so melanin for us and chlorophyll for them. And we have more complexity we could explain with that. Here we have the pharmacological intensification of the water dissociation process or human photosynthesis and its effect over the recovery mechanisms in tissues affected by bloodshed of diverse etiology. And basically, I'm going to read the abstract of this paper. It's talking about the photoreceptor layer of the human retina. Okay, I didn't really explain retina as properly. I didn't finish that thought. So it says that it has several characteristics that are unique. Their energy requirements are the highest in the organism. In proportion, rods and cones require tenfold the energy consumed by the cerebral cortex, sixfold more, and this is fold, okay, more than the cardiac muscle and threefold more than the retinal cortex. Astonishingly, the photoreceptor layer has no blood vessels at all. So where is the energy to this tissue coming from? Well, it's coming from light. And this again points to why sun gazing is so healing and reparative and restorative to the body, because the gentle UV gazing is eating light through the retina and feeding it to your body and feeding your system and creating a larger, easy exclusion zone in your cells. And thereby your battery is going up for energy and you're going to have more energy to repair damage and other problems in the body. Here's another study. Melanin directly converts light for vertebrate metabolic use. They're talking about birds and Icarus. So anyway, here's the gist of it. Melanin unusual in an absorption across the UV visual spectrum, which is controversial, of course. Anything new is controversial. Anything truth is controversial. It's like we don't want truth somehow. I don't know why. Any polymer or macrostructure of melanin monomers is called melanin. Its roles derive from complex structural and physical chemical properties, like it acts like a semiconductor, a stable radical conductor, a free radical scavenger, and a charge transfer. So the melanin plays a lot of important roles. Now let's talk about breatharianism because it sort of leads to that. There's a gentleman by the name of Elitom El Amin, and he's been a breatharian since the year 2000. He does not eat food and he barely drinks any water, only if he wants to. And he's written a number of books, and here's his website if you're interested. And he actually has a course about human photosynthesis, which I'm kind of now curious to take myself because this man is a legend. I mean, this is 22 years. He looks amazing. He healed himself from chronic disease by slowly fasting and coming off of all food and staying off of food. There's another breatharian called Hira Ratan Manek, HRM, that I met in person when I was living more in Toronto area. And he actually came to my house and gave a talk. And I was just so fascinated about solar gazing or sun gazing. He also did dew walking. So the morning, the dawn, the sun and the UV and the dawn is different. So there's different lights we don't have time to get into this, but the dawn UV spectrum is different than the sunset or the sun away UV spectrum. And you get different light activity and different healing qualities depending on the time of day or the circadian rhythm of that. And so when I met him, he was so powerful and so strong, and so his chi or his energy was just blasting. He was so full of energy. and he didn't eat or drink any water, and he hadn't for I think it was 15 or 18 years, something like that, when I met him. He's still alive. He still has his HRM Solar Gazing Institute. You can look him up online, and he describes how to do solar gazing or sun gazing properly. But he also walks on the dew grass in the morning, because the dew contains a lot of UV spectrum charged structured water as well. And you're absorbing a lot of UV right through the bottoms of the soles of your feet, which have all the nerve endings that we have in our body basically, end there. And so your whole body's electrical aspect is pulling that UV light into your body, and you're ingesting and basically you're eating it through your feet. And also you're grounding. So what's happening is you're getting rid of excess charges that are not serving you, and you're able to ingest protons and get more energy from the environment to fuel and feed the system as well through the grounding. And he would drink sun-charged water. So again, putting the water in the sun, getting UV into the water, structuring the water, and ingesting that. And that's all he did. He said he would occasionally eat food if he was trying to be social, or hang out with his family or that sort of stuff, but he otherwise did not imbibe. And they did scientific studies on him. They could find that he was in perfect health. His gastrointestinal organs had kind of downregulated, but were still functional. And they couldn't figure out what was going on, of course. Okay, so attracting like, this is actually getting into the concept more of like a homeopathy, water memory. How can water hold these energy, these charges? And these entities can attract each other. And this is how. When you have these exclusion zones that are negative charged next to a positive bulk water, then you have a mediated attraction. So it's not a direct attraction, it's a mediated attraction. And if you ever look at, I don't know if you looked at live blood cell analysis or the living blood ever, I have a microscope. I used to take people's blood, have a look at it, see if they were dehydrated or if there were too many white blood cells or anything like that, just get some extra information. And one thing you can see in people who are dehydrated or unwell is what's called rouleau, which is when the red blood cells kind of pancake on each other. And this is when the charge is lost. And so they're attracting each other too close. So they're actually not able to function anymore. But when you have this type of charge in the red blood cells, they all have their individual space and they can function properly, and they're not stuck to one another clumping. And also the heart is not a pump. That's another big rabbit hole. The heart doesn't pump all your blood. It's actually these exclusion zones in the vessels where you have these two charges. So you have a positive charge along the side and the negative charge in the middle. And it's basically an electrical pump that's pushing the fluids around your body. So you are really like a battery, and this is how your blood moves. All your blood volume moves through the body. I want to talk also about the consciousness of water and how incredible this substance is and what we're learning about it. So even to the point where if you're drinking a glass of water, the words in which you speak to the water, or the words that are on your tongue when you ingest the water will take that vibration into itself. So when you speak, you're imprinting waters. And we have Dr. Emoto to thank for really bringing our awareness and our consciousness to this topic and taking it more seriously. But you're really literally swallowing your words when you speak or say something into water, or even the water that's in food. And then this becomes part of you. So we have to become more consciously aware of how we're treating the things that we're actually ingesting or putting into our bodies. So Veda Austin is a researcher who's been doing these sorts of experiments for, I think, close to a decade or more than a decade now. And she's a very calm presence. And what she did is she has taken petri dishes, put water in it, exposed it to any number of substances. In this case, she's exposed it to the number 4. She's written number 4 on the petri dish. She has a freezing technique. that she puts she actually sells on her website. You can go and buy the technique that she uses for you to practice and see if you can do it. So far, there's mixed results with repeatability, which also lends itself to the consciousness of the experimenter and how that plays into if the water's going to cooperate with you or not, because actually water is a conscious entity. And we're going to talk about what she found out about water as a conscious living entity. But as you can see in the picture on the right, the number 4 appears in the frozen water. And she has many, many, many examples of this on her website. Here's another one where she showed a picture of a woman on the Petri dish. And then this is the image it gave back after freezing. And I could show you slide after slide after slide of these types of examples that she's done. The more interesting thing that she has found out, at least for me, because I already knew about Emoto stuff, so that wasn't as surprising. But what was really surprising was the fact that she found a language inside of water that she called hydroglyphs. So basically, it's a symbolic language that have one or more meanings. So, for example, the symbol for money and abundance is a coin image, and the symbol for love is a heart image. So this is a quote from her. She said, "To say I have discovered one hydroglyph, I need to have seen the same image appear after using the same influence at least 50 times. This tells me that it's not coincidental and there is enough evidence to say that it has specific meaning. Essentially, I am learning to read messages in water that are revealed in frozen symbology. This liquid crystal language is not as simple as ABC. Hydroglyphs are very conceptually complex. When various glyphs are seen together, there's a story to be told and a scene that is set. And so the memory of water is beyond the imprinting of the vibration into the bulk or into the structured water itself. There's actually a hidden language that she's found that she noticed after doing, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these freezing samples. She would see, say, a face on it, but then she'd also see a heart, or she'd also see these repeated hydroglyphs. And she's written all of them down, these hydroglyphs down. She calls it the language of water. And it has a type of intelligence. It can actually extrapolate information. It can actually become an artist where you give it a representation or a suggestion and it extrapolates from your idea. So it basically will communicate, not conform. So I think when it comes to doing these experiments, if the experimenter is demanding or is too pushy when it comes to wanting results, I don't know if the water is going to respond as well. But I think water being the energy or the vibration of emotions, and we talk about water and emotion all the time when it comes to astrology, when it comes to poetry and music. And when we're describing water, we always relate it to the emotions in our body. And I think the emotional field of the researcher is actually what gets the job done is important. But that's my hypothesis. But I'm kind of leaning towards that, just knowing what I know about water. So you invite water to share what it wishes rather than dominating and hoping or wanting a specific outcome. Art is the heart of water. Water is an artist. The secrets are in the subtleties. Nature hides her secrets well. It's like they're only given to the worthy. If the frequency or the vibration is correct, then you get the secrets. It's like with anything in this realm, is when you become more responsible and self-disciplined, and your frequency is raising, and you're understanding that this is, it's a gift to be here, and you're, sitting more in gratitude and these types of energies, then the doors open for more discovery. You're allowed, because you're showing you're going to be responsible with the knowledge that you're being given. You're not going to give like the car keys to your child and say, just go drive the car. That's ridiculous. So there's power in being able to access this information. So water imprints in layers. So this is why part of her method is putting in the freezer, taking it out, putting in the freezer, taking it out, and having, allowing for layers of freezing to occur. So she says it's kind of like this, this is her analogy, like putting a glue stick, applying glitter, and then sort of shaking off the glue and seeing what's there. So that's part of her method. She's found some really fascinating things. Amniotic waters. So she had this egg water experiment she did. Basically, she identified 6 patterns in healthy, natural hen eggs. In caged eggs, the water struggles to make any patterns. So when she took the healthy, natural hen eggs compared to the caged eggs and tried to make structured water from it, she couldn't do it with the caged eggs. So now think about you getting a caged egg and eating it, what you're losing nutritionally, as opposed to a healthy, natural hen and the structured water within the egg that you are now ingesting. You're getting more nutritional benefit and absorption and utilization of what you're actually eating. But this is also fascinating. When you put a healthy egg next to a caged egg, the healthy egg lends the health to the damaged egg and will automatically start to make some of the patterns. That means water is a healer. That means naturally in life, it wants to correct. It wants to heal. Things want to be in their correct way. They will find the answers and they will be gifted or given the information to make those corrections. And this is something that I experience, an example of sitting in the energy field of a master or a healthy person if one is sick. So when I went to India, one time I went, I was exposed to a high master. It was supposed to be this really big gift to be able to even be in his presence. And we had a totally vanilla conversation. There were no insights. There were no teachings, nothing like that. Basically just sat with him and talked about like the weather. And I didn't really understand it until I started to clue in that our energy fields overlapping was the gift, because his higher consciousness was gifting to me while we were sitting there in that time frame. And I was able to glean and have more of my own awakening and my own understanding because I had been exposed to that. The same happens when spring water is put next to tap water. So if you have shitty tap water, and you put it next to healthy, structured spring water, then the spring water will start to help the tap water to correct itself. The tap water's pH will increase, for example. And if you want to see the science on this, you can look at Luc Montagnier's work. And what will happen in the freezing of the corrected water or the healing of the water is the patterns will start to form like ferns. So they'll get like a fern-like hexagonal pattern in the freezing. So Luc Montagnier, he actually discovered a new property of DNA. He noticed the induction of electromagnetic waves in water dilutions. So he was like, what's going on here? We're getting electromagnetic frequencies coming off. And what does this mean for memory and transmission? And what he was able to do is actually create another DNA out of pure water because of the memory of the water being associated or exposed to the electromagnetic waves of DNA, which is wild. So DNA is a fractal antenna. DNA is a fractal antenna. We are communicating with our DNA from a structured foundation through electromagnetic frequencies around us. Then Jacques Benveniste did experiments on this further, how to record and digitalize, like from analog to digital conversion using a computer and a sounding board, an electrical signal characteristic of a molecule possessing a biological activity. So he was able to actually translate this into code, essentially. And this also helps us understand homeopathy a little bit more, because homeopathy is a water memory. So you put a substance inside the water, the frequency imprints on the water. You don't have to have any of the original substance in the water because the water is holding the frequency of the whatever has been put into it. And you can actually potentize that further by agitating the substance, encouraging more of a structure and refining of the information. And then that is the medicine. So then we have to start thinking about stuff like this. What happens when you sleep next to someone? She also did experiments. Oh, sorry. I don't know if it was her, actually. I thought it was her. But, or she was referring to semen of live sperm versus vasectomy sperm, which they don't, in a vasectomy, the body actually will make sperm, but it will dissolve it and put it back into the body because it's not being used. So a bubble shape would form in the normal semen. In the vasectomy sample, it looked like the bubbles were cut off at the top. So they literally looked like they were cut. Saliva tests, you can actually check for fertility based on spit tests and freezing. So you can see if they're fertile, if their spit freezes in a fern-like pattern. And so you legitimately can just say, yes, you're fertile, or no, you're not fertile, by spitting and freezing the sample and seeing if it forms a fern-like pattern. That's a pretty simple test. Okay. Water is primal. So you've probably heard of primary water or primal water. It's another term going around town. Life is experiencing from every single possible perspective. So primary water is the original water, and it's endless water. Water will never run out. It doesn't come from outer space, guys. It doesn't come from what's the prevailing belief? It's coming from the like outer space asteroids that are ice, and then they landed here, and then they made water or something insane. Yeah, no, that's not happening. The earth actually manufactures water just as it does oil, which is also endless. Water holds memory and all the knowledge of this realm. So it's a supercomputer in a sense, or you could actually access water if you wanted to know all our true history. If we want to fix a historical timeline from all the revisionists, what we need to do is ask water nicely if it will do that service for us, and use Benveniste's protocols to actually translate the fields and the electrical signals coming from water into a digital form so we can understand it. So it's literally gone through everything, our ancestors, our history, every tree, every cloud, everything. It has everything. It's been there and it's done that. If you want to drink free structured water, I suggest going to findaspring.com and go get that water because it's structured by the earth for you on your behalf. Energetic state of health now. So one of the things Veda Austin was saying is that she found if you filtered water through silk, it actually will help to structure the water into more of an easy zone format. And then she thought it was interesting that cocoon energy is like a transformational energy. If you think about what a cocoon is, what silk actually is, that it's the energy of transformation, and you're able to transform water through it as well. Water wants to flow in a vortex. I'm just going to check my time here because oh man, we're not going to get through this. There's no way. There's no way. Just stop me. Just cut me off, okay, when we're there. Water wants to spiral. It wants to vortex, okay? It's very stressed by sharp angles. It does not like boxes. It does not like sharp angles. And restructuring devices will change the pattern of the crystallography. Your conscious expression, like placing your water bottle near your heartbeat can transform your water into something similar to spring water. So you can actually structure your water with your own heartbeat. Of course, this is Dr. Emoto's work. And what she says, Veda Austin says, is showing any attention to the waters, positive or negative, is actually better than ignoring the water. The water hates to be ignored. It's like a Pisces. Water's a Pisces. Structural changes are seen even if the chemistry is the same. So the chemistry hasn't changed, but the structural changes are seen. So you know that the imprinting is coming and is being heard. It's being heard, and there's an effect. So of course the body always wants to heal. We have all the healing we need inside of us. The world that we live on and the world that we live in are two different realities. How do we observe ourselves? There's the two types of water as we're describing. So there's the inner waters and the outer waters. And then that translates into developing what I call the second attention. It's not my word, but I use it a lot because that's our consciousness where we're watching and noticing ourselves, and we're trying to notice our quirks and our issues and our hangups and things that we're wanting to heal. So we can actually, leave our bodies. She talks a lot about, leaving the body or out of body experiences, or astral traveling, and looking at ourselves to get more conscious awareness. And the water, she's suggesting that it's the water that allows us to do this function. It's the waters in the air that's actually performing this function for us. It has huge implications for all sorts of things out of body. So we have the sleep state, or unconscious state. So dreaming next to the water affects the water crystallography. So you put your water glass next to where you're dreaming, your dream will imprint into your water. So that means it's not just internal, it's actually coming out of you and affecting the water around you. The water is invited in to accompany the dream state without any conscious invite. So it will come in and it will test and try and see what's going on. That's its consciousness. So items placed near a window, the frost formation will mimic the close by items. Inviting the waters in the air around us to harmonize or heal the waters inside of us is a technique, a healing technique. Experiences of visiting various places of sacred waters, so the Ganges, sulfur springs, etc., makes us feel differently, makes us think different thoughts, and it heals us. I have so many slides on Victor Schauberger because I'm in love with everything he represented and everything he did. He's a brilliant man. I have many of his books as well, and I do suggest you look into him. There's a great website that really goes through all his inventions really nicely. If you're interested, I'll make sure you get those notes. But he was born in June 1885 in Austria, and he says the upholder of the cycles which supports the whole of life is water. Every drop of water dwells in the Godhead whom we all serve. There also dwells life, the soul of the first substance, water, whose boundaries and banks are the capillaries that guide it in which it circulates. More energy is encapsulated in every drop of good spring water than an average-sized power station is presently able to produce. He noticed that water always desired to coil. So he lived in a forest and watched and noticed and listened and learned and knew that nature was the teacher, and he listened and learned well. And he was able to create all these inventions based on knowing how water wants to coil and knowing how water moves. So coiling or vortexing our water, for example, is one such structuring method we can use to help it be in a happier place and more easy zone. So he noticed one thing about this is centripetal. So he noticed that the movement of water goes like this. It's a centripetal movement, and that's its happy place. And anytime you want to correct anything in nature or create an invention or create an airplane or create a UFO, which is he did, or a generator or fix a riverbank so it didn't collapse in on itself, you make the water do this, and you are going to get endless energy, centripetal movement. So this movement is vital bioenergy, wipes clean any devitalized memory of the water. So dead memory or decayed memory, it will clean that up. And so he noticed this, and he, noticed that it was conscious as well. Of course, he talks about this in his books. He talks about pure water. Here's a link that you can learn about Biological Medicine Institute that talks about him. And I'm going to move along faster now in my discussion. So he's called the father of implosion technology. So the implosion principle is diametrically opposed to what today's explosion-oriented technology utilizes, which is actually damaging to water and all of life, and it's actually degrading us and damaging us and lowering us. Implosion has to do with the self-sustaining vortex flow of any liquid or gaseous medium, which has a concentrating ordering effect, which decreases the temperature of the medium in opposition to the dictates of modern thermodynamics. So he busted open those things too. So basically, it's destructive motion to explode water, and that the technology is doing it ass backwards. Are we surprised? Here's one of his inventions. It's called the repulsion. It's basically a ship using the centrifugal force and of course the centripetal on the underside and this deflector. And he was able to lift off this using the basic vortexing understanding of how water works. This is about the disc. He had a type A device and an electroaerodynamic device. And he utilized two specific effects, the Coanda effect. So this is the tendency of a fluid jet to stay attached to a convex surface. So this is based on Bernoulli's principle of aerodynamic effect. And then the electrodynamic effect, the high-speed vortex of the vortex chamber. And there you have an electric charge separation effect. That's the diamagnetic effect, and they'll give you a lift.
Do you want an extra 10 or 15 minutes? Marty can give it up from the next one, or if you want to finish in the next 5. I want to
take from Marty.
Okay.
I mean, I would feel bad about that.
Let's do 10 minutes.
10 minutes, really?
Yep. We got 10. Okay. That'd be fine, because he's going to go about 40, so we'll be good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, and thank him.
Okay.
So this invention I actually own. I bought this a long time ago. I had no idea why I was buying it. I just knew I needed it, and I was told that I put it on my main for my water coming in, and this is the proper structure of water, and it will lend itself, its energy to my damaged water and heal it as it's coming into my building. And I've had it on my house ever since. So this is the double spiral vortex pipe. He had the bioplow, a trout turbine, a log flume, a forel submarine, a Sogwindle, which is like a shell-like vortex, gorgeous, and this generator that is the Heimatkraftwerk generator. The poor guy, okay, this brilliant, this many inventions. The prince hired him to like save their country because it was broke. I mean, the stories that the stuff he went through, U.S. military frickin' told him to come to Texas because they were so interested in his inventions and they wanted to learn. Well, they tricked him and he didn't speak a lot of English. They said, oh, he just signed this release form. And he ended up signing a contract, giving all his inventions to the U.S. military. And he came back from that literally heartbroken. And he died like 5 days later saying they ruined him and they stole his soul. Yeah. Good job, U.S. Okay, here's how we keep our water maintained. I had the song, "You Gotta Keep It Separated" in my head when I was thinking about this. Batteries need separation of charge. And I was saying to Austin at the beginning, is that the role of the firmament? Think about this place. Is this one big battery? So we have the waters above, the waters below, and the firmament is a necessity because you have to have a boundary when you're creating the electricity coming through. And then you have storms, electrical storms, to reset the charge. So that's sort of how I'm starting to see this realm as like one big giant battery that you need the firmament in order to have life on Earth. Sunlight and UV light, campfire, UV panels, sauna, those are all going to help you structure your waters, vortexing your water, so spinning it or using a vortex like a funnel. Schauberger also invented a funnel, so you can pour water and it'll spin it down and structure it. Spring water is structured. Urine, your own waters of your own body that come out of you are structured. I have lots of videos on urine therapy on yummy.doctor if you want to learn about that. Grounding, earthing, so you're gathering those free electrons and petting your pets. So your pets go outside, they gather electrons, they come in, and then you pet them and you actually get gifted with the electrons. That's why pets make us feel better, not because of the lovey-dovey as much as you're actually getting structured from them. Maintaining proper mineral status, magnesium, potassium, and sulfate. I talk a lot about DMSO, of course. I wrote a book on it. You can learn all about it through my websites. Things that make infrared inside of us: exercise, cold therapy, sound therapy, vibration, breath work. Now think about how important music is. Think about what they did to the music. Think about what they've done to all our frequencies and how they're keeping that away from us, from our lifting of into where we should be functioning from. And then terahertz frequencies, which is part of the UV spectrum, an important part, and can just do incredible things for the body and heal tissues. So here are my favorite structuring tools. There's one called the Somavedic device. I have it. I tried it. My water was definitely noticeable. When the water is structured, it's more silky. It tastes smoother to you. The flavor and the quality of it is more enjoyable. It'll structure water. It'll structure the water of the air, and it'll help your physical body. It reduces effects from mobile phone radiation that damage our waters. Has positive effects on cardiovascular nervous system tissue and sleep. Oh my gosh. So this is heart rate variability comes out of this stuff. I love this device. This is my device. If you're interested in it, I have a link I can share with you for it. I'm structuring water next to it. I'm structuring other devices that I carry with me later so that when I'm out and there's a lot of EMFs that'll offset a lot of the EMFs. And this thing, oh my God, this wand is like a hairdryer, and has a crystal tube inside. And what happens is when you turn it on, it actually shoots the UV frequency through the crystal and it produces these terahertz frequencies. Now, I'm a gadget girl. I have all kinds of gadgets. I've talked about many of them, but I have never had a healing device that works like this, ever. I have a lymphatic blockage problem from when they ripped my tonsils out. I get migraines from the damage that the dentist did to my teeth. So I'm always having to find a way to offset the mechanism damage that was done to me by quacks, by doctors and dentists. And that's the wounded healer path that I walk. So I found out from a friend about this, and the testimonials were insane. And I was like, forget it. I'm getting it. It's not even that expensive. And I've been wanding and blowing. It's called blowing because it's like a hairdryer. You can actually dry your hair with it. So you blow the body. My lymph is unclogging. The pain in my shoulder and back is reducing. I haven't had a migraine since I had it. You got to read the testimonials. This shit structures your water because it's using UV light. You're actually giving yourself sunlight. So if you're interested, I have to order it by hand. It's actually a pain in the ass to order it because the way that they've done this is you can't just buy it online because it's basically, there's a bunch of rip-off, knockoff ones. So you got to be careful out there. So I just want to end with a prayer because water is conscious. And I wrote this water wisdom prayer that you can use to like pray over your food before you eat or over your water. Dear water, I ask for your assistance with my health, my mind, and my well-being. Waters of my body, please communicate with the healing waters that surround me and receive its sacred wisdom so that my being can flourish towards my soul's perfect potential in service to the Creator and all life. Thank you, water. I love you, water. We did it. You are the living water. Water is life. And I really thank you for giving me the extra time to finish up. And thank you so much. I'm glad I was able to present this today.
Yeah, us too. It's great. Hopefully we can have you back another time. That was fantastic.
Absolutely.
So that is Amanda Vollmer. And if you want to follow her on Telegram, it's t.me/Amanda, AMANDHAVOLLMER. She's got an awesome Telegram channel where you're going to find 20 things you never knew every day. So definitely follow her there. And you're still on YouTube, right? You haven't got kicked off permanently yet?
No, not yet. I have a couple channels hanging around. But I'm on BitChute and Odyssey and all those other ones too. And yummy.doctor has all my videos archived.
Sweet. All right. Thanks so much, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Thank you.